Welcome to It's Later Than You Think, the podcast about living in the moment, enjoying the ride, and making the most out of our lives. I'm your host, Patrick Ailshire, a 40-something-year-old Wisconsinite, sharing my experiences and encouraging you to rethink time, purpose, and everything in between. Let's make the most of right now. Welcome, everyone. Thanks yet again for joining me on this journey of It's Later Than You Think. We are in the dog days of summer. It's an exciting week here in Milwaukee coming up. The Bastille Days Festival kicks off on Thursday, goes through the weekend. Just a fun little festival right up the road from where I reside. I always enjoy taking the dog down that way as they set things up throughout the week. It's a nice little reminder of not only living downtown and all the action, but all the great things that Milwaukee has going on in the city of festivals. And I'm sure where you're at, wherever you're listening, there is a lot going on as well. But I will always be biased towards Milwaukee for the very reason of all the festivals. After Bastille, the countdown is on until Wisconsin State Fair. We just had Summerfest. It was Harley Fest this past weekend. There's just a lot going on, which is great. Great time of year to sit out by the pool and have a cold beverage. And for me, and my guest this week, that's going to be a non-alcoholic beverage. My guest this week was Madeline from Happiest Sober on Instagram, as well as the Happiest Sober podcast, the Happiest Sober Hub. She is a busy lady, and it was so nice to be able to chat with her and get her insight on sobriety, as she has been doing this for many years. And what I really enjoyed about this conversation is that Madeline's approach to it all, similarly to how I feel, is that we're going to talk about what we enjoy about sobriety and not drinking, what we find the benefits are, and how we think our lives are much better without alcohol. But that's not the same thing as pointing the finger and shaming anyone who chooses to drink. That's not something that I'm going to do. That's something that she's going to do. We're just here to talk about what we like about it. Maybe you're sober curious. Maybe you're thinking about cutting back. Maybe you still drink and you just want to hear some good conversation. That's going to come at you this week as well. So I wanted to just mention that ahead of this conversation. This insightful and entertaining conversation. Here is my conversation with Madeline. I am thrilled to introduce my guest this week, Madeline of happiestsober.com, Happiest Sober on Instagram, and the Happiest Sober podcast. I have been following Madeline on Instagram for at least 3 years, which started in my sober curious days. I'd find inspiration from her account as well as many others in the sober Instagram community, which helped me see that the other side of drinking, sobriety, has so many amazing benefits and feels a heck of a lot better than the alternative. What kept drawing me back to her account and how genuine she came off and how positive she was. While there's a handful of accounts that will tell you how bad alcohol is for you day in and day out, Madeline instead shares her experiences and how much joy she has without alcohol. She is, in fact, happiest sober. Welcome, Madeline.
Hi, that was such a nice intro. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to say thanks or congratulations. First of all, thanks for being here, and congratulations. You are 4.5 years sober. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'll hit 5 years in November.
Oh, that is amazing. Congratulations. That's
Thank
really
you.
impressive. If you had to choose, it's probably a menu, but if you had to choose the greatest lesson or two about what you've learned throughout in these last 4.5 years, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. So many. I think a couple that come to mind is to really not, it sounds cliche, but to not underestimate your ability to do hard things. Because I think what's really cool about sobriety is that every single person who gets sober is essentially doing something that once felt impossible and once was so hard to fathom, just getting sober on its own, but everything you inevitably have to do then sober once you get sober, right? So I think really to just not underestimate yourself in that way, that you can do things that you genuinely would have never believed you can do. You get to really prove that to yourself. And I think another one that comes to mind is that I think for me, and I think for everyone, that we're so much braver than we realize. When I look back on my drinking days, I think I was always an anxious person in a lot of ways. But I think in my drinking days, I didn't ever have to be brave or tap into my courage because I didn't, first of all, push myself out of my comfort zone as much as I do now. But when I did, I would use alcohol for liquid courage or to, kind of make myself feel braver, but that's not real bravery, right? So I think in sobriety, I've lived a much more brave life in terms of just getting sober, which is a really scary thing to do. But in my sobriety, I have continually done things that push me out of my comfort zone. And I think that's been a takeaway is I'm so much braver than I would have thought. And it's not that I'm not scared of things. It's that I'm willing to be scared to do things and then still do them anyway.
That's so true. I really like that point of things. Life's going to happen, whether you're drinking or not, and masking it and trying to just push all that off to the side by drinking, that doesn't make your problems go away. They're going to be there the next day. And so what I found with not drinking is that, life happens, but I can, go at those things right away or start to think about them more in the moment versus I'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. For sure. Life always is going to happen, but in sobriety, we are able to actually cope with it and manage things when they do happen. It's in my earlier sobriety, when life would get hard, I would be oh, life's hard and now sobriety feels hard because I wish I could drink through this kind of thing because I wasn't used to dealing with life sober yet. And then now when life gets hard, I don't even think about drinking. But if anything, it's sobriety is the thing that is my constant, that keeps me stable, that I'm if everything else goes to shit, at least I'm sober. And at least I always know that I have that and I can trust that.
How many attempts would you say it's 4.5 years since you've had a drink? Was this a kind of a long struggle, something you were thinking about for a while before you actually got sober? Or was it one of those just, okay, I'm done?
It wasn't, okay, I'm done. It was definitely a process. So I got sober at 27 and I drank for 10 years before I got sober. And I would say the first time I started really thinking about my drinking in a serious way of I think this is a problem was right around when I turned 25.
Okay.
So there were kind of a couple years. I mean, I think I knew earlier. I saw the red flags, but I wasn't really facing it yet. But yeah, for I would say the last couple of years of my drinking, I definitely knew deep down that it was a problem. And then when I decided, okay, I'm actually doing this, it was kind of a waking up and being I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But then it took me a few tries after that point. I didn't never drink again. It was actually about a 1.5 month period of trying. And it was my 4th try that stuck for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that for me, it was sober curious definitely for a few years.
Yeah.
I just out of usually pure curiosity, times where I want to see how I feel going for a few months. And a lot of times I would tie in some fitness goals. So I'm okay, I want to spend the next 90 days not drinking and just seeing how things are going. Because for me, it was more of a, which I guess a lot of people are like this that maybe don't have a dependency, but it was the weekend binging, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday fun day sometimes. And that just got old after a while. And the hangovers were just getting to a point. And I just turned 42 a couple weeks ago. And
happy birthday.
Oh, well, thank you. And when I was probably 37, 38 is when I really started, okay, I don't know if this is going to be something I want to do forever. And, taking a couple months off here and there, I always felt great, but then I just go back to it. Like, I'll figure it out this time. So at the beginning of 2024, it was like, so a week before that started, it was Christmas. And I went out on the 23rd of December. I went out with a coworker of mine, good dude. We had a great time, went to a local bar. They had a band playing and we had a really good time. And I woke up on Christmas Eve. And anyone who knows me knows I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of year, all the holidays. Okay. And I was miserable. I was so hungover. I couldn't go to my family thing that we had. I just couldn't get out of bed. Yeah. So I was so pissed. And I said, okay, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to take a year off. That was my thing.
Wow.
Well, I was doing great. And then by mid-March, I was like, I think I can figure it out. I think I can, if I can manage.
Yeah.
And late March, I started drinking. And by mid-May, I had another bad hangover. And that was it. That was it. And you'll think
your second real try at it.
And you'll like this. My last day drinking was Mother's Day weekend of 2024. And the last event I went to was a dog's sweet 16th birthday party.
That's such a great last time.
It was day drinking. But I knew the next day I was like, okay, that 6 weeks that you just thought you could figure it out, like, no.
Wow.
Absolutely
not. So
at
that point, because the first try you were like, I'm going to do a year. But then at that point, were you like, okay, I'm back on doing a year? Or were you like, no, I'm done for good?
No, I'm done for good.
And that was it. Good for you.
So that's awesome. That's enough. And so.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and I think it actually so far, and I know there's going to be those ups and downs, but for me, the last year, fortunately, it's been easier than I initially thought. I think because I've gone in so many different directions and like, I'm going to take a few months off here. I'm going to take a year off. And then realizing like, okay, this is just not going to be fitting in my life.
Yeah, you had that's the value of those breaks sometimes, right? You had a lot of comparison of like, here's how it felt when I was not drinking versus once I got back onto it.
Yep.
So I think sometimes it just takes that for it to kind of finally click for us to have that moment of like, okay, and now I'm done.
Right. I want to ask you about the Happiest Sober podcast. What gave you the idea to start that, and how rewarding has it been?
So I had been doing, like, I started my Instagram account actually in my first month of sobriety, but I just I made it anonymous. I didn't put my face on it. It was just kind of something I was doing, like a place to kind of share my journey and connect with other people. And then it was actually when I turned 2 years sober, that I put out my first podcast episode. And it was just something I had thought about for a long time. And I had previously done a sober podcast with a friend of mine. And I always kind of had it in my head, like, okay, I'm gonna start Happiest Sober podcast. And then one day on a total whim, I was like, I'm just gonna play around with recording an episode. And I did. And then it was my 2-year sober milestone. And I sent the episode to my mom and she was like, put it out in the world right now. Like, just go for it. And I was kind of like, all right. And I just did. So it was kind of like I had thought about it for a long time, but actually going for it was very much on a whim.
Okay.
But now I've been doing it for, I guess 2.5 years then. And it's really fun. I have my mom on a lot. Yeah. I would say it's almost half and half. It's kind of some guests, but usually solo episodes or episodes with my mom. And that's really rewarding because my mom, she's been sober for over 40 years. She got sober at 21. So she's been sober my whole life. And it's really fun to get to connect and chat with her and have lots of conversations that we might not have otherwise ever had. So that's been a really cool part of it for sure.
Very cool. I have listened to actually a handful of your episodes. I started at the beginning and I'm working my way through. I just got to episode, I think 10.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been fun. I really like both your, not only the solo episodes, because those are kind of like some nice quick hits. And then you've got the interviews, and then your mom's been on there, which she seems great. And you had one I just listened to actually earlier this week. You had an author on who had written a few books.
Okay. Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. The Poetry Bandit.
Yeah. So that was a really cool story about how kind of he got sober and his journey with, I mean, how things kind of went off the rails for a while, but he was able to get back. And like many people, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have an exact rock bottom moment.
Yeah,
it can just be a lot of things that are, cumulative, but then you realize that, okay, there's got to be something better out there. So that's what was really rewarding to hear as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah. That really helped me in my sobriety, was really letting go of the belief that like I had to hit some sort of dramatic rock bottom, because I never did. I was someone who, from the outside, my life looked pretty fine. Like I wasn't really having any outside life consequences. And in some ways that can make it harder, because then you almost have this like imposter syndrome of your brain can really play tricks on you of like, well, maybe I wasn't that bad. Like nothing bad was happening kind of thing. But if the only bad thing happening is how it makes you feel and like kind of the internal suffering it brings you, then that's absolutely a valid reason right there. So it really helped me to, let go of that belief of you need to hit a rock bottom or have anything bad happen. You get to just decide it for yourself if it's not serving you anymore.
So where did you find inspiration early on? I know you mentioned that your mom has been sober almost your whole life, and I know Instagram was around, obviously, 4.5 years ago. But was there a lot of the content out there that is now? I know you started your account a month into it, and then your podcast that kind of thing helps talking through it. But who were you able to lean on, or what were you able to lean on those early days?
Definitely my mom. She was such a support for me. What actually really kind of got me into, because the thing is, my mom got sober through AA at 21, and I have a lot of alcoholism in my family. And I definitely kind of had this belief of like, it's this very black and white thing. And like, either I'm an alcoholic or I'm not. And I struggled to feel like that, like I identified with that label. And so that was kind of a barrier for me. I kind of had this belief like, well, unless I'm going to say I'm an alcoholic, then I don't have to stop drinking. And I was listening to a podcast. It was the summer of 2020. So kind of, a few months before I got sober. And I was listening to a podcast, and it wasn't a sober podcast, but I was scrolling through the episodes and I saw an episode called Sober Curious. And it was with Millie Gooch, who's the founder of the Sober Girl Society, which I think is one of the like OG sober accounts. And so I had never heard of the term Sober Curious before. And of course, I was struggling with my drinking, so it piqued my interest and I listened. And that was the first time I ever heard sobriety talked about in a different way. It was the first time I ever heard of the gray area. And so it really resonated. So then I went and followed her account. And then through that, I did find it was much smaller. The sober Instagram existed. It was not as many as it is today, but I did follow a bunch of sober accounts there. And then Quit Lit was so helpful. I read so much in early sobriety. I couldn't stop reading. So there was lots of inspo for me there for sure. And I also joined a virtual support community as well.
The Luckiest Club?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I remember you had made reference to that.
Yeah.
So that sounds really cool. I did not join that, but I am familiar with it. I did read some Quit Lit as well. And this was, this was actually before I officially got sober, which was,
okay.
And it's not, again, it wasn't that the books didn't work. They definitely led me to where I am now. It's just that I was, until you're ready, finding those excuses. But one of the books I read, which just really resonated with me, was This Naked Mind.
Yes, that was one of my favorites too. That was actually the first thing I read on my first day one.
Okay.
And that I loved how she talked about it for sure. That's one of my favorite ones.
Mine also was listening to the Huberman Lab and that episode.
Okay.
It's from a few years ago, but hour and a half, 2 hour episode on alcohol. And I was just like, wow, it's not great.
Yeah. Right.
And I kind of alluded to this too earlier, but like, my account, it is a Milwaukee based account. And I do talk about, not drinking on there. But it is primarily focused on just living in the city and just my everyday life. And I like that in your account, especially, and others that I follow too. It's not so much just blaming and, pointing the finger and saying, why are you drinking? And, making yourself feel bad, because everyone's got, things going on and they have to figure it out for themselves. Mm-hmm. But I like kind of that positive spin of like, hey, these are the benefits that I get. And this is what you could feel if you choose to, stop drinking. But there's sometimes like that Huberman podcast or reading that Quit Lit, where it just basically spells it out like, hey, this is why you're so drawn to it. And this is what it actually does to your body, to your brain, to your mind.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a sciencey person at all, but it helped me so much to learn all that science, especially the piece, like the mental health piece of it, because I didn't know that there was a direct correlation between alcohol and anxiety, like with how your brain actually reacts. And so I was having crippling anxiety every time I drank the next day. And when I read that, it was very validating of like, oh, wait, that's not just a me thing. This is actually like what alcohol does. And that really helped me solidify it. But no, I'm totally with you. I'm never bothered if people around me are drinking. Like, I know this is what's best for me, and I know it's what's best for a lot of us, but like some of the people I love most still drink, and that's absolutely okay. So definitely not here to shame anybody for it. If they can drink and they want to, then go for it.
The anxiety is real. That was...
was it bad for you?
It was, especially when I was a elementary school teacher, and that lasted up until 2015. I've since switched careers to learning development, so I'm essentially just teaching adults. But
cool.
I design and deliver and facilitate training. But the teaching days, especially, where I would be out, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday was already like this dread of, the Sunday scaries.
And then would you have to like lesson plan and stuff while you were hungover?
It was terrible.
That's rough. Yeah.
It was just, and knowing that there was going to be an email from Timmy's mom, because Johnny, these are fourth graders, but like Jimmy pushed Timmy on the playground, and there's going to be an email, and then the principal's going to want to know this and that, and it was grading papers, it was lesson planning, but then add on to it the being hungover and a headache, and it was the last thing I wanted to do. But
that's rough. My best friend's a teacher, so I know that that's like you don't leave work when you leave at the end of the day. Like it's so much work at home, right? So I can imagine that would have been awful.
Leaving teaching in 2017 and now being in the L&D field for the last 7-8 years. When I was still drinking, you still had that anxiety. That Sunday. It could have been Saturday, Sunday on the weekends, and then just knowing that like, I really wanted to go do something today. I wanted to go for a hike, or I wanted to work out. I wanted to meal prep and get ready for the week. And then you're not doing anything. You're just laying around. And then what people sometimes don't understand is that throws off not only that day, but the day after.
Yes.
The day after that.
Yep.
It's just exhausting.
It lingers. And I like, the physical hangover is one thing, but like the mental and emotional hangover, like I had, at the end of 2019, I blacked out at my work Christmas party. I had a terrible month of drinking around the holidays. and that was actually my last holiday I ever drank for, because by the next year I gotten sober. But like, I had the worst anxiety and shame after that, and that lingered for months. Like, I would like, it was crippling for days and weeks, but then even for like months, if it popped into my head, I would be like cringing. You know what I mean? So it's not even just the physical aspect. It's that when you act in ways that you feel so ashamed of, like, that stays with you.
It definitely does. And I'm still, again, a little over a year. I still think back to times that just pop up where I'm like, oh, the last time I went to that place, or the last time I see someone drinking something, and I'm like, ooh, I knew to stay away from
bad
that.
memories. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, and thankfully it's, I was able to figure things out, and because I think just look forward to so much more, and it's a lot less thinking. I don't think about, okay, how much am I going to have? How am I going to get home? How much money should I bring, or have my cards with me? It's
one of those things that we don't realize when we're in it is a big like mental burden, especially if you're someone who is struggling to moderate, or like you're drinking too much and you're trying to get control of it. Then there's this like mental gymnastics of like, okay, am I going to drink tonight? How much am I going to be able to drink tonight? How am I going to keep it together? Planning for like wanting to make sure you have enough alcohol with you for things, planning for how you're going to get home. Like, there's a lot that freaking goes into it. And what a relief and what freedom to not have to worry about that anymore in sobriety. It's total freedom.
I remember even at like family events where I'd like look around and I'm like, I'm done with my first drink. I need another one. And look around like, how come everyone else is only halfway? Like,
oh my God. And then you'd be like, can you hurry up so I can get my other one without feeling awkward? Get on my level.
Yeah, that would. Yeah. And part of my, I think, struggle was I lived downtown for a total almost 10 years now. And so I walk everywhere. And so there's always just the excuse. Like, you'll appreciate this story. So the third last night before I quit, a couple days before that dog birthday party, it was a Thursday night. I was at home. I decided to pour a couple of glasses of wine, and it's, I have to work I work from home for the most part, but I had to work the next day, and, had stuff I needed to do Friday afternoon and Friday night. I end up having a couple glasses, and then it's like 9:30, like, okay, go to bed. And I'm like, kind of feel like I should probably go out for one. It just, so I go down the street and I sit there for like 2 hours, had a couple more. I went to the bathroom at one point, and it was like a swinging door to shut, and the door ended up closing on my pinky finger. Didn't even realize it. I'm walking back to the bar, and I looked down, and it was like, there was like blood dripping from my finger. And I was like, what happened?
Oh no.
So I like go back and clean that up, and I go to the bartender. I was like, can I get a Band-Aid? I mean, it was just like so obnoxious. And that was one of those like, maybe this isn't a good idea. And then, of course, 2 days later, I was able to finalize that decision.
Yeah. It's all those, like you said, it can really be cumulative, right? And then it's like, once you're in it, you're like, whatever, it's a one-off. And then when you're out of it, you look back and you're like, that happened and that happened. And you see all the things that you're like, how did I not see it then? But you're ready when you're ready. It really is. It's something that just kind of clicks into place.
In addition to the Instagram page and in the podcast, you have something called the Happiest Sober Hub community. What's that all about? Who's the main audience? What's offered?
Yeah. So the Happiest Sober Hub is my like sober kind of virtual support community. So what we do is we meet on Zoom multiple times a week. I host sober meetings in there. My mom also hosts 1 or 2 meetings a week too. And it's a really amazing community. Like, I have such incredible members in there. Everybody's so supportive of each other and welcoming. And it's so just like non-judgmental. And it's made up of people some people are still sober curious and figuring it out. Some people are trying to get sober. Some have been sober for longer term, but they just want a place to connect with sober people and kind of talk to people who get it. So it's really open to everybody, and it's a really, really amazing space. So we meet on Zoom. We have a Facebook group where we kind of connect every day there.
Cool.
We have a book club, and starting last year, started hosting in-person meetups every year.
Cool.
Last year we did a weekend in Denver, and then actually in like a couple weeks from now, we're meeting up. There'll be 20 of us meeting up in Chicago, and I'm so excited for that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Very cool. That's nice that you get to do that.
Really cool. It's really amazing. Yeah. I'm excited.
I heard a rumor that you are a Taylor Swift fan.
I am, yes.
If you had to pick between Taylor Swift and coffee, is that fair? Is that fair to do?
Oh, that's a terrible question.
I'm kidding.
Okay, don't do that to me. That's a good one, because those are my two loves.
You were able to go to the Eras
tour. I did. I went twice.
Oh wow!
I went at the very start of the tour in New Jersey, and then I went for her last night in Toronto.
Amazing!
I love sober concerts. They're one of my favorite sober outings to do. They're so fun.
I agree. I have definitely gone to a couple of those, and those were just even before I was even officially sober. It was times where I had just taken, a month or two off. I took a couple road trips, and I went to Cincinnati for a show. Didn't drink the whole weekend, and it was great. I loved it. It was fun. It was fun people watching. It was great to not have to go to the bathroom during the show.
Right. Not line up for drinks. Yeah. I think the cool thing is that like music and being in that environment with people who are all like enjoying the same music, and you're seeing someone live who you really love, like that gives you such a natural high as it is. And now when I look back, I look back on concerts when I was drinking, and I was like, that's such a waste. Like, you don't need it. And realistically, it's making you miss it. Like, you're not, even if you don't black out, which is also a possibility, like you might black out and not even really remember it, but even still, you're not in the present moment in the same way. And then any good feelings you have from it, you're just attributing it to being buzzed. When you get like the best natural high from just being there and enjoying it sober. So sober concerts, they always make me feel really grateful.
That's so true. And for me, a lot of shows I went to in my 20s and early 30s were, I was big into, still am, but not to the point of the early days of Dave Matthews Band. And we would go to those shows, and they were 2.5 hours long, and you had to like try to plan out like
which song is my bathroom song.
Right.
And I'm sure maybe every band could pick that, but like it was so annoying because you were drinking so much and you're tailgating before, and it was like, no, I know that by the time the line's going to be there, do I go at the start of this song or in hope that the next song isn't that good either? Or it's just exhausting.
This is such a funny little like sober thing to feel grateful for, but this just made me think of it is like, I hate a public bathroom. And if I really don't want to have to use a public bathroom, I cannot. I can like have like a few sips of water and be good and be like, I'm not going in there.
Yeah. And I haven't been to a concert in a little while, but yeah, I completely agree. Even when I go to like sporting events now, I can go at halftime, or I can go after the game or before the game and not worry. Yeah. It's amazing.
I know. So good. We get to just be so much more present for everything.
Looking back on your drinking days then, and maybe concerts is one of the answers as well, but what are some things you absolutely love more now than you did then?
Definitely concerts. I love going to comedy shows. And I have like, actually, this is so funny. I was actually just thinking of this the other day, but I have like a cringe memory of being absolutely wasted at a comedy show, and the comedian was making jokes about me, like, that drunk girl over there who has no spatial awareness because someone was trying to like get by me.
Oh my god.
So I love a comedy show sober now, and like I just actually went to one this weekend, and I was crying from one. And again, it's this feeling of like, who needs alcohol? Like, it's so good to just enjoy and have that much fun all on your own. So comedy shows and concerts are two favorites. Traveling. I love traveling sober. That really makes me grateful. and like, honestly, life. I really like in my drinking days started to like by the end, I relied on alcohol to feel good. It was like the thing I was always counting down for. It was the thing that I thought like the fun starts once the drinking starts. And so to be able to generate those good feelings on my own and like find joy in what I'm doing, you know, something I say a lot is that in the end of my drinking days, things that I used to love doing before I ever started drinking became fun because I added alcohol to them. Right? Like I would like when I was younger, like loved hanging by the pool and swimming. And then in my later drinking days, it was like, let's day drink by the pool. And that was the thing I was enjoying was the drinks or any activity I was doing. It became not about whatever I was doing. It was like drinking was the activity and drinking was the thing I looked forward to. And so I just love that now I appreciate what I'm doing for what it is. And I get to find like that feeling of fun and happiness out of life itself rather than needing alcohol for any of it.
I love that. It's something, you think back to, you know, when you're a child and what you enjoyed, or even in your early adolescence. And it just, I think back, you know, I mentioned the holidays and Christmas time, and I have loved college basketball and March Madness since I was like 15, and I wasn't drinking then, you know, before that at least, you know, and maybe sometimes in high school here and there, but it wasn't consistent like I had been as when I turned essentially 18 or 19. And so this last year, I've been able to experience some of those things, going to college basketball games, going to an NBA game, going to a musical, going to concerts, going to the holidays without that. And it's still so fun. And for me, I just like it because then the next day I still remember what all happened, and I can look back on like, that was cool. I want to do that again.
Yeah, you have your memories. You have clear memories of it, and you're not like, there's not like blurry drunk memories that make you cringe or feel bad about yourself, right? I completely agree, and I love that. And I think it is really helpful, like you said, to look back on being a kid, because when we're imagining life without alcohol, we're like, I'm never going to have fun again. I don't know how to live without alcohol, but you did for lots of years. And if you look at kids, they're the most like carefree in the moment, having fun. And it's like, you can reconnect back to that. It's just that when we start drinking, we disconnect from that. And then we believe that drinking is the way to get there. Right. But if you could do it then, you can absolutely do it again.
I mean, aside from some, you know, summer nights before college that we, you know, some friends and I had some drinks, I just think back to, you know, freshman through senior year, like the typical day-to-day hangouts, weekend hangouts, like how fun those 4 years were. I met some really great people that I'm still friends with now, and we would just hang out. And it was absolutely, I have such fond memories of those times. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, no, you're going to college, better get a tolerance. You know, I like to say, I've told my listeners this before, you know, since I quit when I was just before I turned 41. Yeah. You know, I had a good 20-year run, essentially, you know, we'll say 20 to 40, you know, with some months off here and there, but it was a good 20-year run. But you know what, now looking forward, if I lived to triple digits, awesome. I still got, you know, another 60 years to.
So much life ahead of you. Yeah. Yes. I love that.
But yeah, just thinking about all that time that I didn't have to rely on alcohol. But you know, as we know, it's marketing, it's the pressure of just, this is what people do. And
it's like the expectation and the norm. So you just do it, and you're like, this is what you do. And it's like, you don't know what you're missing out on. That's the thing that, like, I really, when I think about it, I'm like, gosh, those of us who struggle with alcohol and get to the place where we need to get sober or want to get sober, we're so lucky, because I think there are so many people who will just never get to discover like how good you can feel without it. Even people who may not identify themselves as having a problem. But I really think like if you're drinking, even if you're drinking on the weekends and drinking to socialize, like you're just not feeling as good as you could be feeling. Right. And so I think like, how lucky are we to get to that place where we, you know, had to do the hard thing of quitting to get to discover like, wait a second, everything I thought alcohol gave me, I can give myself and then some, and it'll feel so much better because it's actually like real and authentic.
Yeah. And it's, you know, you have to be brave, and you have to just take that that step, and sometimes it's multiple steps, but it's worth it in the end. And if there's, anyone listening that has considered, there's probably others that you aren't aware of that are feeling that same way. I mean, when
100%.
I made an announcement maybe like 6 months ago on my Facebook, and I had like 4 or 5 people comment, and then some people even messaged me privately.
Yeah.
It all said, "Hey, I haven't had a drink in 2 years," or I have, I've considered it as well, and so it's cool to see there's more people out there than you think. And I'll give a shout out to even my brother, who him and his wife just had their first child a little over a week ago. So that's exciting, but
congrats.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So happy for them. But he and again, I've never been told my family like, oh, you should consider not drinking like that. Yeah. We're going to do that because that's everyone lives their own life. But he's actually gotten into NA beer over the last 6 months, primarily because I bring some around and like, hey, try this out. And he'll like text me and he'll be like, oh man, I had an NA beer while I was grilling out last night. Woke up today, felt great. So so
that's awesome.
I don't think he's ready, obviously, to give it all up. But it helped him out, especially now as a dad. He'll really have to be on his game, and so it's cool to see. I gave him for his birthday a few months ago. I gave him a variety 12-pack. I picked up all these different types of NA beers, and I wrapped it up and brought that to him, and it was great. I'm getting texts from him every week, like, "Oh, I tried this one, tried that one." And, it's neat.
That's great. It's cool to see. Like, I always say when we get sober, there's such a ripple effect that happens. Like, even, you sharing online that you had gotten sober, all those people you never would have known that they were doing the same thing, right? I think that's such a common experience, is like when you're the one to say it, then you find out people who either aren't drinking themselves or are thinking about it and they want to ask you for advice. But even like, I've heard even from so many community members recently, people in their lives who aren't necessarily problem drinkers, but when they're around them, they just kind of tend to drink less. And it's like, it really can't, I think people see the changes in you, and whether you know it or not, like they're noticing it. And I think it inspires a lot of people for sure around us.
I think so too. I mean, like your account, especially with, how many followers you have, just your inspirational messages. And it could be something simple like, good morning, everyone. And, with the coffee mug, and I love that. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the mug is working out wonderfully. I got the
I used this one today because I was like, if he has a coffee, we might be twinning.
That's awesome. I actually it's sitting over in my sink. I had a couple today. That's awesome. Great mug. So big fan of that. So that was
glad
cool.
You're loving it.
It's cool to have some merch from the community. What advice, you mentioned you hadn't heard of Sober Curious, when you initially were that was kind of a newer term, let's say 5 years ago, but someone who would consider themselves sober curious now, what advice would you have if they're wondering what life is like taking an extended break, and maybe this isn't something they want to do forever, but they're thinking about it?
Yeah, I think I would say, first of all, it takes a lot of courage to even be in that place of questioning, because even that, like, kind of, reevaluating our relationship with alcohol, that in itself can be a really scary thing to do. So I would say to anyone who's in that place, like, you should be really proud of yourself for being willing to examine that. And I would say to just keep being very honest with yourself. Like, when you're drinking, be really aware afterwards how it makes you feel. Like, I think that just staying really honest with yourself will help you to come to your own answer about how you want to move forward and what you want to do about, drinking moving forward, whether you want to drink. So really be mindful and aware after the fact of, like, how does it make you feel? And do you feel like it's serving you? And what I would say about, wanting to take a break is, I think that what can be hard is that when we first first stop drinking, it can be a really hard thing to do, as we know, right? And so you might feel when you stop drinking, you might feel uncomfortable. You might feel a little awkward going into social situations. You might feel like, oh my God, it's really overwhelming having to feel all my feelings or be in my head all the time and not have that like mental shut off that alcohol gives us. Or, you know, you might get home from work and be like, oh, I'm really wanting to take the edge off. Like there's all these ways that we might not even be aware we're kind of relying on alcohol. And so I think that it's really important to just acknowledge that like you can just decide to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And what I think can be tricky about the fact that it's, you know, hard and an adjustment at first, as change always is to not then be like, ooh, sobriety's hard, I'm not going to do it. Because that's not how it feels forever. That is the process of change. That's how the early days feel. And I'll share, you know, I got sober November 2020, but in January at the start of that year, I did a dry January because I was coming off that holiday season I mentioned where I blacked out at my work Christmas party and I was in a shame spiral. I was like, I can't feel this way. So I took a month off for dry January. I came out of that month going, this proves sobriety is not for me because that was hard. And I felt like I had nothing to look forward to on the weekend. And so I came out of that being like, not for me. I stayed up until midnight, January 31st, waiting for it to turn February 1st, poured wine at midnight, red flags all over the place. But what's funny is that I thought that meant sobriety wasn't for me because it felt hard, when in reality, that meant I needed to get sober because it felt hard.
Yeah.
So I think if it feels hard in the beginning, don't write it off as, oh, sobriety is hard and it sucks. Be willing to see that through, because that's just what it feels like when you're making that change. And it's like you have to build up those muscles again of adjusting to doing life sober, adjusting to going out and being in a social situation without a social lubricant. And if it feels uncomfortable, what that means is you're actually like working on building your confidence muscle all on your own. You haven't had to use it in so long because you've had alcohol. So decide to lean into the discomfort of it and trust that if you don't like the way alcohol is making you feel and you want something different for yourself, to trust that however it feels in the beginning isn't how life without alcohol feels. That's how it feels when you're making the change, going through that process. But on the other side of it, it gets so much easier. You start to feel the benefits. You start to feel more confident in yourself. You start to feel proud of yourself. You feel how good it feels to wake up with peace of mind, with energy, not feeling ashamed of yourself, not forgetting things you did, not like all of that. We all know what that feels like, right? And so there is a life in which you don't have to feel that way. And if it feels hard in the beginning, that like, don't give up on yourself, because it really does shift. So just be willing to feel the discomfort and see it through is what I would say.
I love that. It's true. It's almost like learning a new skill.
Mm-hmm.
Your skill is not drinking or using alcohol as your social lubricant. I took adult ice skating lessons last year because I realized that I went past the local rink that we have downtown here in Milwaukee, and I was like, oh, that looks kind of fun. Was walking with my dog, and I got like 2 blocks up the road. Oh, no, it doesn't. I don't know how to skate. That looks terrible. That was one of those, let's push myself out of those, that comfortability.
You.
So I went to a national ice rink that they have here where Olympians train at here in Milwaukee area. And I took 6-week course, just kind of the basics. And I had, I'd been on skates before, but it had been so long and I knew I didn't know how to actually skate. So it was so awkward and uncomfortable. It was, it was for adults. So I wasn't like with these, my siblings were like, were you skating past the 4-year-olds? And I'm like, no, they're actually, the kid class was moving. They were good.
Yeah, but, I bet.
I wasn't even the oldest in the class. They probably like 10, 12 people. But yeah, those first 2 weeks were so uncomfortable. And but I went back every week and I felt great when I finished. And it's starting a new job too. It's uncomfortable. It's learning. You're like, I saw this meme a few months ago, and like starting a new job is like being a character, like a character in the 5th season of a sitcom, like a new character,
so
like
true.
It's so awkward, but that's just like how I think getting sober is. And it's like, you've said this too. We have gone from doing these events and things in our life to doing the things with drinks. You know, it's like, oh, well, we're out by the pool. Well, no, we're drinking out by the pool.
Yeah.
We're drinking before the game and the concert. I mean, it's just like, it's added so much. And of course, when you watch TV, it's a great time to drink. There's always a good time on those commercials.
Right.
If they were to play the commercials the morning after.
Oh my God. Or the commercials of what drunkenness actually looks like. Too.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah. Right. 100%.
Well, Madeline, before we wrap things up here, I would love to give you a minute or so to, if any promotion you want to take.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Happiest Sober. My podcast is Happiest Sober Podcast on all platforms. You can join the Happiest Sober Hub at happiestsober.com/hub. And also check out my YouTube channel at Happiest Sober on YouTube, because I've started vlogging recently, which has been fun too.
Cool.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Madeline, I want to thank you once again for taking some time. This was a very rewarding and fantastic conversation. I do really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Well, that was a damn good conversation, if I say so myself. We talked about this during the interview, about things that still get you excited and get you pumped up, those natural highs that you get without alcohol, and having a conversation about sobriety, about not drinking, about the NA industry, any of that stuff is something for me that I really like to talk about. Again, you like to do it in a sense of not being preachy, but at the same time, you've made a choice, and when you see those benefits, it's hard not to feel really good about it. So hopefully you were able to take away a couple nuggets, a few little points from Madeline and our conversation. I want to thank her yet again for being a guest on the podcast. Go check her out on all the socials, as she mentioned. Please do me a favor. Follow, like, subscribe the It's Later Than You Think podcast. We're on Instagram. If you're enjoying these episodes, always welcome to tell your friends. And I look forward to chatting with you next week.